It being 5:30, a quorum present and the meeting duly posted, I'll call this July 31st Select Board meeting of the Shelburne Select Board to order. And like to pass along our condolences to the Upton family for the passing of Donald Upton, who was passed this weekend. He was a Select Board member back in the early 70s and very active in the community, and wanted to take a moment just to acknowledge his service to the community before we go further on.
He was a fine man.
With that, first order of business, we have the acceptance of July 13th and July 17th minutes. I know Terry got them out, one of them set out late, and I did have the opportunity to review them. Did Rick, did you as well?
I did.
Is there a 13th? Did those come out? Because I didn't. Okay.
They were just before our previous meeting when I was in Pennsylvania, and nobody had had a chance to read them yet. So
Okay.
we passed over them,
All right.
but I have read them now. So
Hello, Andrew.
Good afternoon.
We are at acceptance of the minutes for July 13th and July 17th.
Great. Accept away.
yeah, I would move we accept the minutes for both of those two dates.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Motion's been made and seconded to accept the minutes from July 13th and July 17th of the Shelburne Select Board. Is there further discussion? Hearing none. Call this matter about. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Andrew?
Aye.
Rick?
Aye.
Myself as aye. Motion passes unanimously. Liaison reports. I know, Andrew, you just got back from vacation. I hope you had a good one. Do you have anything you'd like to pass along, or?
Well, I did meet with the Pratt committee before I left on vacation, and that was the first meeting I have attended in my select board capacity in a while. They are in the process of assembling and prioritizing a list of building improvements, and it's the two big ones on their list that have been there for a while are repairing or upgrading the lift in the library, and they've been exploring some different options for that, and also replacing the large windows in the curved rear section of the library, which was kind of the big item that fell off the list in the capital campaign renovation project. So that was more than the capital budget could handle at the time, but still remains as a project. So they're looking at that and what some of the different options may be. So more to come on the Pratt list. It's kind of in the early stages of development, but those are probably the two largest items that they're contemplating. And the good news is that one of the tricky little items that had been there for many years did get fixed in our Bridge Street Phase 2 project. The sort of shifting front steps got repaired. So they did a very nice job on that too. So that's a win for Bridge Street Phase 2. That's all I've got.
Excellent. Rick?
Town Hall, I spoke with the treasurer, and all is well there. Expecting one horribly busy week this week with taxes due tomorrow, and it being a payroll week as well. Veteran Services, I did speak with them as well. They've lost their Veterans Services officer and will be posting that job, so they're in a bit of flux at the moment. So there's nothing else new from them. From the police department, Chief says the merger has gone seamless, is his word. And new officer Pettingill has begun his full-time position work, and new full-time police officer Belanger will be starting August 6th. Chief noted that he felt the department morale overall is very high. I did miss one thing, sorry, from Town Hall. Joe Judd, the town clerk, asked me if I would mention tonight that the town of Shelburne, he has organized, is going to host a election training class. It will be a 2-hour program. It'll be held at BCS on August 23rd, and it'll be presented by a representative from the Attorney General's office. So he is inviting all election workers to attend that, starting at 10:30 a.m. August 23rd. So I told him I'd give that a mention, and hopefully that word will get around as well as he is trying to spread it. And that's all I have.
All right, excellent. I had the opportunity to meet with the senior center and their staff, and they have these really cool T-shirts that Shelburne Senior Center, Ashfield, Buckland, Shelburne, that they're giving out to volunteers and staffers. And if you'd like to get one of these cool T-shirts, they're looking for volunteers, and they would anything from technology to handiwork around housing. They have all sorts of people that would be willing to be happy to have their services, especially the new technology component, where they're teaching elders about smartphones and tablets and all those things. So there's going to be the Senior Center annual picnic, which they're able to do August 18th. It's going to be at the Buckland Rec, and they're looking forward to that. They did have to cancel, or well, not cancel, reschedule their adventure club, because their first adventure was going to be going down the mountain coaster at Berkshire East last week when it was like 100 degrees or something like that. And they felt maybe it wasn't the most ideal time for them to try to go sliding down a mountain when it was that hot. But lots of exciting things happening at the senior center. The highway department, they are chasing washouts still. In case you hadn't noticed, it's rained a lot, and they've done pretty well, but there's still areas where they're working on. Brook Road is open to one lane, but to do the proper repair, that's going to be a major project to get in there to get that bank stabilized, and so we can get two-lane traffic going there. But that said, things are going along well. Other than that, I don't have anything else. Anyone like to chime in on anything?
Bob, just an FYI, I don't know if you've spoken with Cynthia Bettner, but she has signed on and wants to, I believe, update us about the small business energy project.
Yes, I just saw her sign on. Thank you. And I sent her an email that I approved the letter. But yes, Cynthia, if you'd like to.
Well, I don't know if you want to take it now or under any other business.
I think we can do it now. It's kind of under.
Great.
He's here.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah. For those of you board members who didn't see it, I sent this to Bob for in a draft form. There's as I mentioned at your last meeting, the Mass Save program is coming to Shelburne for a special for small businesses the last 2 weeks in August. And they're sending a postcard out to all the small businesses. And they've now agreed to actually send a joint letter from Eversource and the town to also promote this program, so that small businesses will know that this is all part of this partnership that we're involved with. So hopefully that'll make the program a little more relatable, and they'll realize that it's being tailored to Shelburne. So Bob had seen the letter that they would like to send out, and I'm wondering, Bob, would you like to be the person to actually sign that letter?
Yeah, I'll be happy to if Terry can print it out and get it Oh, like I can sign it and it can go out. Oh, there, Andrew's flailing around. Are you having a seizure, Andrew?
No, I'm just trying to turn the lights back on. Hang on.
That's the best.
I
Perfect.
love it.
Okay.
Well,
I'm in the select board meeting room, actually. I had such a lousy time last time with my Comcast connection that I decided to try it from here. But the lights go out if you don't move around.
that's good.
That was amazing.
Good.
All right, thank you.
So Bob, the one trickiness of this is that it has to be signed both by someone from Eversource, and the latest I heard was that it's going to be signed by the man who comes out to do all the assessments. So we need to find out. I think what she said in her last note was from Eversource that we might have to send her like a digital signature or something like that from you that they would then plug into the letter for mass production.
Oh. Okay.
So hopefully you can accommodate whatever they decide is the best way to do things.
We'll see what we can figure out.
Okay, thanks.
All right.
The other thing that's associated with that program is that there's a press release that they also drafted for us. And that can have a quote by someone from the town. I'm willing to do that, but if you'd like to do that as well, or Andrew,
you
because
can.
he's been involved with the energy committee, whatever you think is best.
No, you're more than welcome to.
Okay, I'll do that. So I didn't know if a press release had to go through the select board as well to have that okayed.
All right, well, thank you, Cynthia.
Do you need to see that and
It'd be good to see it before it goes out, but yeah,
okay,
but you're more than welcome to make the quote. I'm okay with being behind the scenes.
okay, that's fine. So I actually already sent that to you, and I'll plug in a quote as well, or at least tell you what the quote's going to be, and then if you could just get back to me and
Yep.
let me know. Okay, wonderful.
All right.
All
Very
right.
good.
Is there anything else you need from me?
No, I think that covers all the departments and liaisons.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Terry, do you have anything to add?
I do. I just wanted to mention that the elevator work is complete. The
Woo.
state will be on site tomorrow, testing and inspecting it. And that we had hoped to have the handicapped accessible ramp work start today. I'm told now that it'll be postponed until next Monday, the demolition of the ramp. So,
Well, good news and bad news, but we're
yes.
moving. Andrew.
Just Terry, on the note about the elevator, have you been in touch with Jim Kessler at the Memorial Hall Association? About
Yes, he's going to be sending something about taking back Memorial Hall second floor October 1st.
Okay.
So between now and then, he will prepare something.
Great. Okay, no, I just want to make sure it got on the select board agenda calendar there so that we could talk about that before October 1st. Yeah.
Yeah, once he submits it, it'll be on the agenda.
Great. All right, thanks.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Terry. Moving on to old business, we have the streetlights. Have we received the report yet, or has that come in yet, or will that arrive tomorrow? Or
I don't think we've received it, but I just got home an hour ago, so I don't know.
yes.
I just spoke with Cynthia moments ago, since I'm in town hall here, and she stopped by, and she said it would be presented to you tomorrow as promised. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we look forward to hearing that. I don't see John Walsh here, but the HVAC project at Cowell Gym. Do we have any updates on that?
Terry?
I don't.
No.
All right.
John did just mention in an email that I saw that the project is on course, but maybe may not be complete by August 15th or so. So that was, in terms of completing the reporting by August 30th, that was somewhat in question. So I guess we'll learn more at our next meeting about whether they can finish up in that timeline or not.
Okay. Next up, Andrew, is the Pocket Park project. How are we doing with that?
Nothing new to report there yet. We're still waiting on that grant application to get reviewed.
All right. So the West County Senior Service District Board of Managers appointees, I spoke with Sylvia and also one meeting with the Senior Center that they're trying to create a postcard to send out to folks looking for interest in Buckland and Ashfield to serve as managers from their respective communities. So that's just kind of on hold until they have the people in place to be able to move the project forward. So next we have the relocation of Veterans Memorial. Have we heard anything from Negus and Taylor?
Nothing yet.
All right.
We're just waiting for a timeline on that, right?
That's correct.
The only other is there's been some question about what's going to happen with the flagpole, I guess is the next.
The flagpole is going to the police department on the
Oh,
trail.
okay. All right. Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I will pass that on to those folks who inquired. All right. So next we have the newsletter guidelines. Rick.
Okay, given that we've had this item before us for about 6 weeks or more now, given that I feel we should be in a position to give a potential new editor at least a minimal set of guidelines for the appointment, and given that a town-owned asset, specifically the email list and the access to the newsletter email account, are not in the possession of the town at this time, to the best of my knowledge, I would move that the board adopt the 8 guidelines to date and make them effective immediately.
There is a motion made to adopt the 8 guidelines regarding the newsletter. Is there a second?
Yes, I second.
Okay, we have a motion made and seconded. Now we can have discussion.
Bob?
That's go ahead, Andrew.
Well, a couple of questions and a clarification. The clarification I would offer is that the email list that the town created is in possession. The town is in possession of. It's on the server. All the people who signed up since the town took over the running of the newsletter have registered on the town's website.
What about the 230 some odd prior to that?
They signed up for a different newsletter.
Tricky.
Well,
Okay.
I'm just saying that was the municipal newsletter that was created with the town newsletter. So if and when there is a new municipal newsletter that somebody steps forward to create, I'm happy to send out a message to all of those people and say, if you'd like to subscribe to this newsletter, send your address to the town.
Every newsletter that you sent out, Andrew, in prior, you sent out signed Andrew Baker Select Board. So you gave the impression in asking people to sign up and tell their neighbors to sign up that it was already a municipal entity.
Well, yes, but in the process of, as I told you, that was a community newsletter effort, and in the process of doing that, I put all of those addresses into a single spreadsheet that included several hundred newsletter addresses that I already had. So those are all now in neat alphabetical order, but I don't have a recollection of which one signed up, for the town, and which one signed up, which ones were people that I knew already. So
okay, you said they were on the town server, the ones that have happened since.
right.
But last I knew, Terry, no one had access to that email account. Is that still correct, Terry?
No, I have access to that, to the
Okay.
newsletter account as
Okay,
of last week, yes.
you got it just last week. Okay, good. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Super. Well, thank you for
So
that.
that's my
clarification.
clarification on where the newsletter evolution stands.
Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
And you know, again, whenever there's a newsletter that wants to be written, then those folks can find out about it, and they can officially sign up with the town.
Super.
But the two questions that I have in the guidelines that you presented, one is a somewhat hypothetical question, but has to do with the fact that I have been the initiator of this newsletter and am a select board member, as Rick has pointed out. So if I were to remain involved in the newsletter, either as editor or on the editorial committee, and this newsletter were to continue as a municipal, whoa, there I go again. Wait a minute, jumping jacks. All right.
That's cute.
If I were to remain engaged in that way, then it would seem to me that the review of the newsletter draft that you're proposing in your guidelines would need to be a posted meeting.
I don't see that personally.
Well, it would involve me and theoretically you being in a meeting together, reviewing the newsletter.
Gosh, no. I believe I said it should be sent to all three of us individually, and we should respond through Terry or to the editor, but not discuss it amongst ourselves. Absolutely not.
Well, how can we edit it if we're not discussing it?
If any of us found anything to be corrected, perhaps an errant date, an errant time, something that needed correction.
Oh, what if there were
And that
bad substance that we needed to correct or change or discuss?
Then Terry would individually reach out to us, I suspect, and we could have a meeting, discuss it, or ask the editor to scratch it until it was resolved. The
All
point,
right.
the
I'm
point
just saying there's been an awful lot of concern about the open meeting law, so I'm just raising that as a
Yeah.
potential.
And there's been an awful lot of concern about the use of the newsletter and trying to keep it on a straight and narrow as well. And that's all I'm trying to do, Andrew, is
Right.
just not allow it to become a political mouthpiece, that we should just give it some guidelines. And how could we ask somebody new to come in and serve as an editor without at least giving them some semblance of a job description or an outline of how to perform? It's just, that should be in place before somebody says, hey, I'm interested, and then, oh, well, let's make up some guidelines for them. These guidelines I felt were fairly simple and universal.
So my question is still on the table about having posted meetings to review the newsletter. And I would just check you there, Rick, about whether you're suggesting that the newsletter has been a political mouthpiece. Is that something that you want to assert in this meeting?
Yeah, we have documentation of it. I have examples printed out, but I don't think there's any fruit to be harvested from talking about those kind of nuances. I think we should just look forward, not backwards, and put into place some basic elementary rules to make sure we have a good community newsletter. We even put in our tax bills the snippet that I don't know if you wrote or who wrote it, but about, hey, we have this newsletter, stay on top of what your committees and commissions are doing, and sign up here to stay abreast of what's happening with your town groups. That's all I want to see happen. Hopefully we can get it going again soon.
So my question is still on the table about posting the editorial meetings.
Yeah, Andrew, I've been running that through my head, trying to figure it out, that we might need to bump that up to the Attorney General office or Donna. as I don't have a solid answer for that. I can see your point, where if we're discussing the contents of the letter,
Well, I've been consulting the Ethics Commission and the Attorney General about a number of things, so I just want to make sure we're on the right side of this.
no, I appreciate that, Andrew. No, I totally get it. And like I said, I've been running it through my head as listening, and I don't have an answer. I truthfully don't.
Okay, well, why don't we table that one and until we get an answer on that. The second question I have.
Well, before we move on, Andrew, to your second, on your first, would
Okay.
would it make sense if we altered that wording to ask whomever the editor is to send it to Terry, who is more knowledgeable about everything that's going on in town than any one of us individually, I think. And if she sees a problem, we can take it from there. Or catches a mistake. I just don't think they should go out unread under the banner of the town.
Well, you're kind of delegating the authority of the select board to your town administrator.
Yeah.
How about one select board member? I agree that there have been times when the newsletter has published incorrect information. That had I seen it before it had gone out, I could have given the correct date, correct time. But I wouldn't be able to catch everything. I wouldn't know, whether what the open space put in is how it's published in the newsletter.
I don't see how a potential future editor who's assembled stories from town committees and commissions and boards and put them into a document, prepared it to send out to voters and residents, that if we were asked the courtesy of having it sent to us prior to it being distributed for the purpose of catching things like that, and we were able to reply to that new editor individually, that, hey, everything looks good, thanks for a great job, have at it. We've at least done our responsibility to make sure the correct information is going out to the voters of the town that we supposedly are creating or have this document, this newsletter communication channel established. I don't see how getting them the right information is an issue.
We have done similar type things on other letters that have gone out. We've looked at it individually and replied back to Terry or to an editor, which could be.
That's all I'm suggesting.
Yeah.
So what was your second question, Andrew?
Well, I guess all I'm saying is if the content of the newsletter is just a matter of correcting typos or
No.
misstated dates, then there should not be a problem. But generally speaking, I would say, that's not how if you're limiting the review of the newsletter to essentially, marginal corrections of typos and dates, then I don't think you need a posted meeting. But then that should be stated in your guidelines that we're only going to review items that do not require the posting of a meeting.
That don't require what?
The posting of a meeting.
Okay.
To have a more substantial discussion.
I don't have any objection to adding that.
So my second question about the guidelines that you proposed is that there's a section in there which essentially authorizes the town to include news items that are not municipal, that include events and postings from nonprofit organizations and others. And that was actually the thing we ran aground on, I believe, Terry, when we had John Taylor bring to us the Shelburne Congregational Church Bulletin News, and you raised a concern about that. So where are we on that subject?
The last I knew, the town newsletter was for town boards, committees, employees, departments, not nonprofits, churches, tag sales, employment ads.
Yeah.
It was strictly town news.
So shall we strike that section now? Or amend it to say that the town will only post town, whoa, there I go again. You have some language you prefer on that section there, Rick?
No, I have no problem with that at all. I thought the goal was to allow notice of a example, a COVID vaccination clinic at the community center to be included in it. Things
Well,
that
I think if that COVID vaccination is being conducted by either a municipal or a regional entity that we partner with, like the FERCog, then that would count
be
as
acceptable.
municipal news.
Yeah.
But if it's a church bulletin or the Shelburne Grange Fair or the
Yep.
farmers market, those do not count.
I agree with you 100%. So I would agree to that we should change the wording on item number 6 to, as Terry stated, that it's to be used for municipal boards, commissions, and committees, and town hall news.
And I think you could safely add in the regional partners that we contract with. Because a number of our town, a lot of the work that we do as a town is actually now contracted to regional partners, like
Right.
or the assessor's assistant, or the company that does the assessment
Yep.
for us. And we have
I-
a number of different regional partners that we work with.
I agree 100%, Andrew.
Yeah.
I'm perfectly fine with that.
Okay. So do you want to bring us back those amendments, or do you want to vote on it now as with the amendments that we've discussed?
I think we're 6 weeks in. Let's get it over with. It's not like it's a final document either. Like any other document that we have, we can review it, amend it, add to it, detract from it later, but we needed a place to start. So I feel we accomplished that with these amendments. So Terry can make the amendment to item number 6.
Terry, you following where we're at with everything?
Yeah, I guess I would like, because Rick, you had created these guidelines. I would love to have your suggested language and
Okay.
for me to just go from there.
All right.
Well, if we're not going to read it back to ourselves tonight, why don't we just bring the amended language to the next meeting and we'll vote on it there?
If that's what Terry prefers, that's okay with me.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the best.
Don't think it would hurt, given that we don't have an issue going out anytime.
Yep, I agree.
All right. Very good.
Perfect. Thank you for your time, guys.
All right. Is there any other old business? We have a 6 o'clock appointment with Greg Bardwell regarding some policies for body worn cameras, detective and electrical weapons, aka tasers. Greg.
Yes. Can you hear me all right?
We can
I've
hear
got
you.
got a shoddy connection here. I'm sorry.
I can hear you.
Alrighty. Yeah, essentially those three policies just brought to the board, two of which are revisions in the policy and procedures that were adopted a ways back. There was a policy on electric weapons, or otherwise known as tasers. There's also a policy on body worn cameras. Both of those were just revised to reflect changes that were mandated after the implementation of the police reform, and certain items in regards to the post commission, in regards to reporting, and how long or how soon after certain timeframes that have to do with reporting certain use of force to the feds, and also to the post commission. The third item is basically a policy on the position of detective, which really kind of just spells out what that position is going to be responsible for, with the hopes that at some point here, that would be the first step to implementing that position with the department. So if this was to pass, if the board was to approve the verbiage and the policy and the description of that job within the policy set, I'd then bring to the board an actual job description for that position. It's just essentially there's certain things that normal patrolmen, myself even, we can't do without the status of detective, certain subpoenas, search warrants, things like that. So nothing too out of the box here, but those are the three policies that I'd like the board to review.
So one question I have to Greg and to Terry, with the new position, does the detective have to go to town meeting for approval, or is it just an internal position within the department that can be created?
I would like this. I'd prefer to see just a position that could be, because of the size of our department, just a position that we could appoint within. I don't think it's going to come with any type of outlandish benefits to the job. I think it's more of in our case, the department our size, more of a title, that's sort of thing, where that they can utilize that for attending specific trainings that have to do with certain things. I can then kind of relinquish some of the stuff that we've kind of been holding back, or that state police say that they can't handle. Sexual assault investigators, again, search warrants, subpoenas for things like Facebook, Twitter, all that stuff that myself, sergeant, or a normal a patrolman just doesn't have time to submerge themselves in and do things the appropriate way.
Greg or Bob,
Go ahead, Andrew.
just to follow up on Bob's question there. Greg, I would just say if that appointment does sort of count as a promotion that may have an implication on future salary and benefits, then I think that is a financial implication that should come before the board, don't you think? Or are you saying it's completely separate from salary and benefits?
I don't think it's I guess the way I was looking at it, if it was a department that we had a detective bureau and a hierarchy within the bureau itself, I believe it would probably come with separate benefits to that, and wage classification. I think that if the job for us is kept in such a way that one's not overwhelming the other, like I'm not going to be having a detective pulled off the road and strictly doing detective work Monday through Friday. I think if that was the case, I'd be wanting to research the, you know, yeah, wage and so forth and so on. I just think that really right now with what we need is it really comes down to basically making one of our full-time officers a detective so that they can get the training that they need so that they can do the detective work on patrol hours.
But just to, again, to follow up, if there were a different kind of promotion that you wanted to make within the department, say from patrolman to sergeant or whatever the next step is up, is that something that you do by yourself or that you bring to the board?
We'd have to bring it to the board, creating a new position that involves basically moving up. Yeah, that would have to be, that'd be brought to the board. This is more of a sideways, but I don't prefer either way. If you folks want
I
to,
think we should keep it consistent with whatever our practice is. So that even if it's not a huge, boost in salary or benefits or whatever, if it's a promotion of some kind that could have some implication on future salary negotiations, then that seemed like it would be prudent to bring that to the board.
sure. I just don't like the word promotion. It's not a promotion.
Okay. For appointment, whatever you want.
I can see, Greg, where, by giving the title, it gives you some flexibility to do work that was limited based on, patrol officer versus detective and how the powers that run classes think. So as long as it's a lateral sideways kind of, I don't see an issue at this point, but if there is pay and grade, then definitely would have to come before the board.
Terry, do you have any recommendation on this?
Well, I think part of what Greg is presenting is a policy for the position of detective. He's got a job description for the role. And I think that there's no harm in approving this policy. And then when Greg is ready to have the select board appoint one of his officers in this role, then it's definitely a select board appointment. I don't think Greg at this time is looking for a pay increase. And if he were, that would of course also go before the board. But am I mistaken, Greg? You're just looking to create the framework for a position?
Correct. Yes, that is essentially, I agree with everybody's comments here. If it was the type of thing that we think that down the line, or it's difficult. If I was looking to have a lieutenant, that would be a promotion. That would be different. That comes with a litany of certain responsibilities, stuff like that. Yes, you're correct. This would be kind of the framework. If the town wants, if the board wants to discuss it any further, I mean, we can have this conversation, obviously, and I'm sure we will once the job description comes up. But at this point in time, it was basically a policy in place that says that if we deem somebody a detective, that when I say, hey, we've got this sexual harassment case at Mohawk, I'm not a sexual assault investigator. I can send only detectives to sexual assault investigator school. They don't take anybody else. We would have that asset on the department. Here you go. Can you work on this? I can't do that right now. I can't do that with a patrolman. That's basically the meat and potato of it.
Well, makes sense, Greg. Just had to ask a couple of questions for clarification.
Yep.
Rick, any thoughts?
No, I have no problem with any of these three.
All right. Is there a motion for adopting the 3 new department policies for body worn cameras, detective and electrical weapons / tasers?
So moved.
It's
Second.
been, motion's been made and seconded for adoption of the police department policies. Is there further discussion?
Bob?
Andrew?
Greg, I was wondering if you could just speak a little bit about just the practical background of the taser question. Is this something that's coming because of the shared police services and sort of harmonizing equipment and policies on both sides of the river, or is it
Yeah.
just? And I'm just curious, if you could speak a little bit about the use of tasers in Shelburne and Buckland, just because from my reading of various, articles about, controversies that have arisen about, people having heart attacks after getting tased and stuff, it seems like there is it's not without risk.
Yeah, no, I don't mind talking about it. Again, eating hot dogs not you could use it's a risk too. So
Yep.
I think you hit the nail on the head, Andrew. Buckland has tasers. They had tasers. They have tasers currently, and that was on my capital expense 10-year plan to eventually try to get our department on in the same ballpark. Tasers, I'm not sitting in front of all the statistical data, but I can say for certain that 90% of the departments around us carry them, including state police. It is essentially the in between in the use of force continuum. It falls after pepper spray at around the same time as if you were to use a baton and before you get to a firearm. I think that in the years that Buckland has had them, I don't think that they've ever deployed them. But I think it's a useful tool to have rather than having to get into a situation where you exhaust the tools that you have and you have to expedite to a lethal situation that could have been prevented by a less than lethal tool. Of course, if this was to be implemented, all the officers go through mandatory training. There's more training that was mandatory training that was added to departments because of the police reform bill. So yes, I understand. If you read through the policies, there's a whole section on basically where they shouldn't be used, and all these officers that would, if approved, be carrying them would obviously have to abide by all that information. But I think they're a useful tool. I've never been around anybody that's used them. I can't speak for state police, but I know that in Buckland, I don't think that they've ever been deployed. But again, it's just kind of one of those things where, in a situation, a knife situation, there's certain laws that they call them lawful but awful, where an officer gets into a situation where it escalated to a deadly use of force situation that probably could have been stopped if there was less than lethal options on scene. It seems as if a lot of agencies are steering clear of or moving away from batons as a use of force option. I think the only time I've ever seen a baton used was to smash a window in a car that had been rolled over outside. In my mind, if you get to the level of the use of force continuum where you're having to take out a baton and actually strike somebody, I think that could have repercussions that are far more lasting than a taser. And so that's kind of my personal opinion. But like I said, Andrew, I'd be happy to provide you with any statistical data that I can find that
No, I think that's helpful background, Greg. Thank you.
Yeah.
I just wanted to kind of know where we've been with it and kind of where we're going as we adopt this policy, and you know, it's good information.
Thank you, Greg, for answering that. In my previous life of working on the ambulance, I have been around when tasers have been deployed, and it is an effective tool at the right moment in time. So Greg pretty much summarized it pretty well. That said, is there any further discussion? Hearing none, call this matter to a vote for acceptance of the policies. Rick,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
myself as I, motion is unanimous. We have acceptance of the policies. Greg, we thank you for coming in and keep up the good work. And any other questions for us?
No, good seeing everybody.
Very well. Enjoy the evening.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to new business. Item A, we have Andrew Baker, the closer of appearance of conflict of interest.
Did you all, I think it was, I don't know if it's in this packet or the last packet, but I contacted the State Ethics Commission in regard to the question of my working as a liaison with the Memorial Hall Association, and wrote, and they recommended that I fill out the form that I filled out, so I filled it out. You have the information about my past association with founding and serving on the board of the Memorial Hall Association back in the late 90s and early 2000s. It's been about 20 years since I've been on their board, but I have been involved with them informally for many years through starting and working on pothole pictures, and that now with this most recent capital campaign. And so I've learned some useful things from the State Ethics Commission about what I can and cannot do as a select board member in that regard. So I shared those things in the form that I wrote out for you there. I think one thing I would add on it, just if we, maybe we can bring this up under other business, but I would like some clarification from the board about other liaison roles, both on the Pratt Committee and the Energy Committee. So this year I opted to yield to Rick on the Town Hall and the Police Department liaison roles, but that has left me with 3 committees that I am connected to. I guess I just need some clarification on the if I'm being appointed as a liaison to those 3 committees, since it seemed like we did not fully clarify that in the last go round.
I agree 100% on that. And I agree. I think it'll come up again when we get down to item D, and we can work that out. In this particular document, to stay in subject, Andrew, I think all you've done has been fantastic. Clearly dedicated, decades of work with it, as you said. All that, hats off to you. This particular document and use of the word in 3 locations of being the select board's liaison to the MHA. Liaison is a term that the town has historically used for an official relationship between an appointed select board member and a town department, period. Not committees, not commission, not anything but a town department. So liaison carries with it the impression of some official capacity, is what I'm saying. We do have appointed representatives not specifically select board members, to non-town entities such as the COG and 7 others that we approved this year in an earlier meeting. But to the best of my knowledge, the board has not, and we did not this year appoint anyone as a town representative to the MHA. Where if we did, it would be in a representative, not a liaison official capacity status. So, you know, I think the document's fine. I think we should get to it. I think the purpose of doing it is the right thing. I just object to the 3 locations where you claim to be the liaison, when you in fact are not. If we strike that portion, if you're looking for a vote on that, I'm fine with it.
I don't know that I was looking for a vote on that, Rick. I was just advised by the Ethics Commission.
Yeah.
To submit a document to.
Yeah, he has to disclose the appearance
This is a
of,
disclosure document. If we
Right.
have disagreement about the meaning of the word liaison, you know, we can discuss that or correct it or whatever, but this was a disclosure, Rick. It was not something that I was looking for a vote from the board on.
Okay. Right.
yeah, it's part of, it's a disclosure that we've stumbled across a couple of times every now and then as we've, gone through the appearance of conflict of interest. And to get back to, item D, which we had some clarification as a result of Terry's network of town administrators. So I don't think there's any action other than it has been filed and it's been disclosed. So I think we're good there. Correct, Terry?
Yes, unless the select board objects with this, I don't think there's any action to be taken.
Right. That's my understanding as well. All right. So moving on to item B, Highway Pole Barn bid awards. After going through the FRCOG the second time, we received at least five bids
Bye.
for the construction of the pole barn at the highway department. I sent out a brief email earlier today from Mark, where he checked references for Maple Row Farm, and all the references that he checked were positive. And it is the recommendation of myself, the FRCOG, to award the bid to Maple Row Farm for the construction of the pole barn. With that, between what was appropriated from the purchase of the pole barn and being able to have this as a Chapter 90 project, we have funds left over from this past year Chapter 90 monies that can be used, that will cover the 86,000.
82,125.
$82,125.
I'm sorry, Bob, can you restate what the low bid was, or did you not yet do that?
Wait, I just did. $82,125 was the low bid for construction of the pole barn. The high bid was in excess of $160,000.
185,000.
180. Yeah.
Bob, I was under the impression that the town had already appropriated 100,000 or so to construct this pole barn.
The $100,000 consisted of the purchase of the barn itself, as well as construction. The price of the pole barn did come in higher than expected, and then with the installation costs higher than expected as well. It wasn't for the lack of due diligence. Mark did a great deal of
No, I'm not suggesting that. I'm trying to just get a sense of what the overage is from what we appropriated to what we're going to accept. What's the difference?
Somewhere, I don't have the numbers directly in front of me, but it's gonna be about $30,000 overage, which can come out
Over
of,
what over what we appropriated.
yes, which can come out of chapter 90 funds.
Okay, that's all I was trying to get to.
Yeah. So is there questions, further questions?
I'm sorry, can you tell me the name of the low bid again?
Maple Row Farm,
And do we know anything about them? Have we?
Mark checked the references. They're a local provider. They're out of Buckland on 112. And they've been doing several different projects in the area. Let me see if I can pull up.
If I may, while you're looking for that, Benjamin Hay is the gentleman who owns the companies. There's actually 3 operating out of that. I had never heard of them either. So I dug around, did internet searches and trying to find out who they were. And I couldn't find anything negative about them either. Although the others, only one was familiar to me, Renaissance Builders, who I actually had built my home. So I was familiar with them. But the others from out of the area were so high that we wouldn't consider them anyway.
They've had experience in constructing an industrial bucket elevator. Has something to do with bagging grain. They've been referenced in building a barn and other contract rebuilding and maintaining high tension power lines. So they've got kind of a diverse background, but have experience in erecting buildings and similars.
And did you call the references or did Terry?
Mark did.
Mark did. Oh, okay. All right. Well, if they built a barn, that kind of is the most comparable project to the one we're trying to get done here. Good. So Mark is ready to go with them?
Yes.
All right.
So is there a motion?
Well, I would move that we accept the bid from the Maple Farm Company. And do you want a separate motion about the chapter 90 or what?
Sure, we can do a separate
Okay.
motion about it. Yeah.
All right.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion made and accepted, seconded to award the construction of the pole barn to Maple Row Farm and Ben Hay. Is there further discussion? Hearing none. Call this matter that all is in favor, please signify by saying aye. Rick,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
myself as aye, motion passes unanimously. And we have a motion for taking the funds from chapter 90 for augmenting for augmenting construction of the building.
I will move that.
Is there a second?
Sure, I'll second it. I have a question.
Okay,
In
sure.
terms of how the motion is worded, can we have like a up to amount or something like that to just say, what is it we're appropriating here? Like up to $40,000, or what are we talking about?
Unfortunately, Andrew, I don't have those numbers in front of me. And Terry, do you have the numbers or?
No, I'm going to try to reach out to Mark.
Yeah,
I think
So
if we,
got 100,000 and we need something like $30,000 more to make this work.
it was
that-
somewhere around in that neighborhood, but I don't have the exact numbers of what was left.
I just feel more comfortable. I hate to make motions that are just like blank checks. So
Well, in order for Mark to get approval for use of the chapter 90, he has to submit an application, which each of you sign before it gets submitted to Mass DOT. I don't believe those have been submitted yet.
No, they have not yet. He
Uh-huh.
wasn't going to put the cart before the horse. And once the approval has been done, then he was going to fill out the Chapter 90 requests.
But if you feel it's no more than 30,000, Bob, should that be the motion? Up to 30, up to 40?
I would say up to 40. I think
I'm
I'd be
not
more
getting-
comfortable.
I think we need to leave a cushion. I mean, we can't have somebody do 90% of the job and not have the last couple of thousand to pay them. And we'll know the actual figure when those documents come through for signature,
Well,
right?
Well, why don't we make a motion tonight for up to $40,000? And if it happens to be over that, we can tack on whatever's left over at the next meeting.
I
How's
think that's great.
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second,
For- Okay, motion's made for using Chapter 90 monies up to $40,000 with the potential of having to return if it comes in more. And I apologize for not having the exact numbers. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, call this matter to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Andrew?
Aye.
Rick?
aye.
Myself as I, motion's unanimous. I forgot, and I apologize, John, I see that you're on. We kind of jumped past you on Powell Gym HVAC project. You've been patiently there. Would you like to report anything under old business for the Cowell Gym?
Yeah, I'm fine, Bob. I actually came in a little late. So the project is continuing. The back ordered materials have supposedly shipped from Houston, and they're supposed to be in today or tomorrow. If they're in today, they will be there to the HVAC people. It's all HVAC equipment that's backlogged. If they're in today, they will be there tomorrow. If not, they'll be there Wednesday. The electrician has been on site every day since last week. Most of that piping has already been laid out. The next job for them is to snake the wires in. We have a tentative commissioning date of August 8th and 9th, which would be a representative of the equipment coming out, the Dakin representative coming out and actually testing the equipment to make sure that it's actually installed to their standards. So we're hoping that by the end of the week, if that everything falls into place, all the equipment and all the electrical work will probably, not the electrical work, but the equipment will be completely tied up or tied in, and that the electrician will finish the connections next week and then commissioned.
All right, thank you. Any questions for John?
Thank you for the pictures you sent of completed sections to the unit going up inside the building to serve, I think it's the equipment and offices storage area up front over the entryway. Thanks for sending those along.
Yeah, there's been no additional visual impact since those times. That's why I haven't sent anything at this point.
Thank you.
And just on that note, I did get a chance to walk by and take a look at the compressors, and the brown cladding on the exterior does not seem to be a big visual impact to me.
I would agree, Andrew.
All right, thank you. Community
you.
Preservation Act Committee.
There's really no action to be taken yet. The Recreation Committee will be meeting in the next week and will bring forth their recommendation for a member. And then we still need 2 residents of the town to serve on the 5-member board.
One point of clarification in your wording, Terry. Recreation Committee recommendation. We don't have a vote on that. Whoever they pick, we get, right? We only vote on 3 members on the list All the rest are by right chosen by the committee, according to the bylaw.
Yes, that's correct. My
Okay.
apologies.
No problem. And it hasn't come back from the Attorney General, right?
No, it has not.
So it'd be premature to even consider applicants for the three members that we do get to vote on.
That is correct.
Okay.
So Terry, can you just say again what we do have in hand in terms of seats and people?
We have representation from the Conservation Commission, the Planning Board. The Rec Committee will be submitting their appointed individual.
Mhm.
We have a member from the Open Space Committee. We have yet to receive a nomination from the Ag Committee or any interest from residents of the town.
Okay. So we've got 4 and we need a 5th to have a functioning committee, is that correct?
There are 5 required members.
Right. And you can have up to 9, but you need at least
Yes.
5 to actually
Yes.
function as a committee.
Yes,
So we're 80% of the way there then. Huh?
close.
Okay. Good.
Excellent. Now moving back into representation on boards and committees. This came about partly from what I recall was when we had the representative and a member of the Energy Committee as Andrew, and became aware that as a select board, we can't appoint ourselves to committees that we appropriate funding for. Is that correct, Terry?
No, select board members cannot serve on boards or committees that fall under the purview of the select board, the appointing authority.
Okay. And I came on as a result of that with the Emergency Planning Committee as a member, and I'm no longer a member. I've informed Joe that I'm not a member. I would represent the board, but not as a member of a voting member of the Committee for Emergency Planning. So I've told Joe that as he sent out regarding being sworn in as a member, and I said that's something I can't do.
So I think we're coming back to the question of how we define the words liaison or representative then.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
my point was that as 3 select board members, we all have equal ability and right to attend and view committee meetings and commission meetings. But we have in no case that I can find ever appointed a liaison or a representative specifically from the select board to any commission. I know, Andrew, you have stated that specifically, as we discussed earlier, that you went from a voting member. Actually, did you get sworn in as a voting member to the Energy Committee?
I don't know, did I?
You were the one that would have had to go after we appointed you on the meeting of May, I think it was. But if you hadn't, like Bob said, he didn't get sworn in, so he doesn't have to resign it. I'm just wondering if you.
I don't think I have done that. No.
Okay,
I just took an oath this evening to swear myself in as a sewer commissioner.
Great.
So I don't know if I have to unswear that, but there you go.
I think it was discussed that you wouldn't have to because it was a separate district, but that's just my memory of the conversation. But
Yeah.
back to this one, the select board has never appointed in its annual process any of its individual members to be a liaison or a specific representative to any committee,
Actually,
commission, or board.
Actually, that's not the case, Rick. I think if you look at the Pratt Building Committee by statute, the members of there is one member of the select board that is a member of the Pratt Building Committee. And I think
That's-
I think the verbiage is chair, but we've kind of moved away from chair and put whoever was willing to serve at that moment.
Yes,
And so the Pratt Building Committee has a member or representative, or, again, we're coming down to word tooling.
well, not
Well,
really.
Bob,
I agree. We did appoint Andrew to that at our meeting this year when we did all of the appointments. But we don't appoint a select board member as a representative or liaison to the planning board, finance committee, any other committee. I think that's a slippery slope to go down. These committees should be left alone and bring their information to us as a group without feeling that any one of us in particular is their specific assigned representative. And the Pratt Building Committee is one of the 7 that we did approve. The others were, Veterans Center, the Downtown Village Partnership, COG, and so on. But we never, okay, maybe you have in years past. This year, during my time, when we went through all these appointments, no one from our board was appointed to a commission, a committee, or a board as an official representative. And I don't think we should go down that road.
Terry?
I think the mistake that was made is on the list of appointments, Andrew was appointed as a member of the Energy Committee.
That's
Because years ago, he was instrumental in a solarized project before we had the Energy Committee. So when we were starting a new committee, Andrew had a lot to offer. He was appointed as a member. And it wasn't until I recently was told by another group of town administrators that you cannot appoint a select board member to a committee that falls under the auspices of the select board that I brought this to the forefront.
Right.
So that's the problem. The board appointed Andrew. He accepted the appointment. He is yet to be sworn into that appointment. But technically he cannot serve as a voting member.
Right. And the same with Bob's position with the emergency. So we understand that that was something we didn't know. It was against the Mass General laws and we backed off of it. But now looking forward, are any of us interested in claiming to be a liaison or a representative of the select board to any specific committee? And if so, is that a road we want to go down or take votes on doing?
Well, sure. I'll, Bob, do you want to start in on that?
I'm Googling at the moment. So I want to know the definitions. So go ahead, Andrew.
Well, just simply that I deferred from accepting an appointment as liaison to any of the 3 town divisions, police, highway, and town office, because I'm engaged in a fairly substantial amount of work in the areas of energy, Memorial Hall Theater, Pocket Park, and now I'm helping the Pratt Committee as well. So those are all committee work kinds of projects that I'm engaged in lieu of liaison work to a particular town division. Yes, I can happily continue to do that work, not as a member of those committees, but simply by attending their meetings as a citizen of the town.
I think that's
So
what we can all do.
if that is the preference of this board, that you don't want me to have any sort of intermediary or advisory function to, update that committee on what the select board's interests and policies are in regard to the theater or the energy projects or what have you, then I can simply attend those committees as a citizen of the town.
Well, I personally think that, given the importance of the Memorial Hall Association and how it works in close partnership with the town hall in regards to the renovations, and there needs to be some form of, lack of better words, official channel of communication to and from that group. And that's why I was trying to work, going to Google for liaison and
Well, in that vein, Bob, in specific, I've helped that group as a citizen of the town to develop its initial documents to launch a $1.2 million capital campaign, of which there is now about a third of that has been committed in local, state, and federal dollars. So the public money has been assembled on the town side. The part of that process was a joint effort between the town and the Memorial Hall Association to secure a nearly $200,000 state grant, which we did this past winter.
Right.
So there's clearly a public-private partnership going on there.
Cool. And I agree 100%. And I salute you for all that work, Andrew. I'm just saying, if we go through the motions and make legal votes in open meetings with a list, in this particular one, committee representation, that adding Memorial Hall to that list is a definite thing we should do. And I would make a motion that you be appointed to fill that role. I assume we can do it at this point when we didn't do it back at our annual reorganization. And if we can, I would make that motion to have you appointed to that role. It's just, you can't just start saying I'm liaison to this, I'm liaison to that, I'm liaison to this, if you're not. So let's make you official, is all I'm saying, because you do a heck of a job.
How's your Googling doing, Bob?
It didn't help that this works closely in proximity with, the organization and things. I think representation, in terms of the Energy Committee, but the other ones having, again, it comes down to word tooling and verbiage, and I think probably representative because I'm the FERCog representative for the Shelburne Select Board, I think is my title for that. I don't think I use the word liaison because I vote on behalf of the town for.
Right. You have a weighted vote on the FERCog board.
Right.
So
I think
representative carries a different portfolio than liaison, which is simply
Right.
passing information back and forth,
Yes.
Well, Rick, if you don't have an objection to the word liaison, why don't we just make it a liaison role, but with the Energy Committee and with the Memorial Hall Association?
I don't think that's right for committees, commissions. It's only for town departments that we've had liaisons.
So what's your favorite word there?
Well, I don't think any of us should be a direct representative to Energy Committee, Recreation Committee, Conservation Commission, Open Space. That's not our role.
So you would prefer not to receive any information from me about the work that I do with those committees?
I think if you would
keep you in the dark, if that's what you prefer.
If you attend the meeting or I attend a meeting for any committee and I come back and I offer to tell you what I learned and you want to hear it, great. Yeah, so I'm open to that. I'm just saying, if you declare yourself to be a liaison, an official role capacity to the Energy Committee, that's inappropriate. to the Memorial Town Hall Association, I'm not sure about that. If it's legal for you to be a liaison. I'm sorry, liaison wouldn't be appropriate. A committee representative, as we describe it in our annual document of appointments. So we might want to look into that before naming you our official channel of communication. But if we have one, I think it should be you. But
Yeah,
Well,
I-
they are, you're correct in saying they're different roles, because in the case of the Memorial Hall Association, which is a private nonprofit organization, I would have to join their board in order to have a vote. So when I describe myself as a liaison there, I'm simply sharing information back and forth between the board and the nonprofit. I don't have a vote on their board, and they don't have a vote on our board.
okay. So I'm okay with that. But in the document that you submitted tonight for the appearance of impropriety, that you did claim to be the liaison. So again, if we make it clear and you make it clear that you're acting as the conduit of information between them and the select board, that's fine with me. But to appropriate
what-
the word liaison is inappropriate in that case.
How is being a conduit of information different than being a liaison?
The liaison has an official standard and expectation
Of what?
of responsibility. That's why we use it for department heads. I mean, for the department liaisons. So we are the assigned channel from the departments of the town. The committees, Energy Committee, Recreation Committee, Finance Committee, all those, it's their responsibility to bring their information to us as appropriate, as needed.
When you go to those meetings, it's not uncommon that conservation would say, so as a select board, what are your thoughts in regards to access to chapter 90 monies or whatever to do this project? And I says, well, you're there as a quasi expert per se, if you're, there as a conduit, and I'm getting a headache from this, but it's one of those things where it's not uncommon for committee members from other committees to ask for information to be relayed back to the select board so that an opinion can be talked about and brought back to them. When you're so there's that, could you check with the select board to see what the thinking is? Or at the select board meeting, this is what we were thinking, providing just a simple means of communication back and forth, that it was just never quite so formal or dissected in previous times.
So in that case, shouldn't we put in a request to the chair to put their request on our agenda? As opposed to kind of freewheeling it, like you said, kind of loosey-goosey thing? You can tell I don't like loosey-goosey, right?
It's becoming very obvious.
I mean, you set up a process and procedures and definitions. They're pretty easy to stick to. So you're not asking to be appointed to representative or liaison to the Energy Commission then, which is, we'll just leave it as you or I or any of us can attend, and if they have things they want to put in front of the board, they can request to get on the agenda to bring it to us. Is that a problem? I mean, why wouldn't we assign somebody to every committee and commission we have in town? There's no, they're no less important than the others. They're all important. And they all should do their job and report to us or ask us questions as need be.
Sure.
May I suggest that at the very least that the board rescind the vote to appoint Andrew as a member of the Energy Committee, just to be in keeping with Mass General Law. The rest of the discussion is up to the board.
And do Bob separately, or can we do them both at the same time? Because we did appoint Bob as well.
Sure, we can do Bob separate.
Okay. And I would move we rescind the appointment of Andrew Baker to as a member, voting member of the Energy Committee.
Is there a second?
Bob, you'll have to second that. I don't want to expose myself to a
Oh.
conflict of interest here.
Thank you, Andrew. I will second that. Thank you, Andrew. Is there motions been made and seconded for removal of Andrew as a member of the Energy Committee? Is there further discussion? Hearing none, call this matter to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Rick,
Aye.
Andrew,
Abstain.
noted. Myself as I, motion passes with 2 in favor and 1 abstention. Moving on to rescinding, even though I had declined and did not get sworn in.
I'll move that we rescind the appointment of Bob Manners to the Emergency Management Committee.
Seconded.
Okay, you guys can run it because I'm going to follow the same suit as Andrews.
Andrew, you're.
All right. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, Rick,
Aye.
Andrew is aye, and Bob.
Abstain.
All right.
Thank you. All right. Is there any other new business to?
Bob, I believe we need to go back and revisit the vote on the pole barn use of chapter
Oh.
90.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, we do. Terry was able to reach out to Mark, and I did grossly underestimate by $30,000. We're going to need $70,000 out of chapter 90 funds for the completion of the pole barn. Thank you, Terry.
And we have that in available chapter 90.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
We
So-
have in excess of 200 and something $1,000 in new chapter 90 monies, and I'm not sure what we have left over from this past year.
It's unfortunate that got all, times have a way of making it happen, and it's unfortunate that it's way more than expected, but we have paid for the item. It's laying on the ground at the yard, and it'd be wrong of us not to put it up.
Yeah.
So what is the dollar amount we should?
To appropriate up to $70,000 out of chapter 90 monies for the remainder of the installation of the construction of the pole barn.
So moved.
Is there a second? Motion's been made and seconded for correction of the initial request for chapter 90 monies, now raising it to $70,000. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, call this matter to vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Rick,
Aye.
Andrew,
Aye.
myself as I, motion passes unanimously. Is there any other new business? Any other business? So
Just
Andrew,
Bob,
yep,
did we finish up on the liaison / representative question?
that's what I was just going to ask, because that was
Oh.
my note under any other business.
Okay.
If we had finished up on that discussion, because I don't know.
As long as we all agree or understand that the votes we took for liaisons to departments, for committee representatives to the other organizations, are the only ones that exist, and they can be referenced in that capacity unless we add to them with an official vote, then yes, we're done. I just wanted to have that clarification.
So can I just get some clarification on the roles that I'm playing with the Pratt Committee, for example? because there was an email back and forth with Lori about whether or not I should be the chair of that committee, which they just voted me in last meeting.
I didn't see that.
So should I rescind on the chairmanship of the Pratt committee, or should I not even be a member, or should I be a liaison? What exactly am I doing there?
The composition of the Pratt Memorial Building Committee is defined in the trust or some formal documentation that states, it states that the chair or a designee of the select board shall serve in that role. So I feel like that's separate from the select board appointing you. That is in the documentation
I
of
agree.
that committee.
Right.
Whether or not you serve as chair, I don't know how. I don't know.
Okay. Well, I'll continue then as chair until I should be unseated for some reason or other. Unless you think they should change their vote on that.
No, I think you're fine.
Oh, me too.
Okay.
Given,
And was
given
I
the verbiage.
did I need to be appointed by this board to that role or not? And was I?
You were,
You
you
were.
were already
Okay.
appointed to serve on the Pratt Building Committee.
And do I need to be sworn in?
The Pratt
That's a
Building
town
Committee-
clerk
that's-
question.
No, I don't think so. Because it's a
Okay.
separate freestanding committee.
Okay.
Because it's,
So how about the Memorial Hall Association? Is that a role that you would like to have a liaison with the town as this project proceeds, or would you like me to keep you in the dark on that?
I would like the conduit to be open. But you weren't like you were for the Pratt Building Committee. You were not appointed in the annual voting.
I'm not saying it's like the Pratt Committee. It's another project I'm working on that I'm
Yeah.
seeking
Yeah.
clarification about. If you prefer not to have me be a liaison in that particular capacity as a conduit of information, then you can summon the president of the board of the Memorial Hall Association whenever you want an update from them.
I personally would like to get updates from you, Andrew, as you come along, just because. But how we do the verbiage on that, I'm totally lost at this point.
I'm fine with getting regular updates on it as well.
Well, I serve at my own pleasure on that committee. I attend their meetings as I choose because I have no official connection to it from
Yeah.
this board. So if I happen to go to their meeting and I happen to want to tell you something about it, maybe I will. How about that?
Okay. Sounds good.
Please do.
Sounds good. Thank you.
And the same goes for the Energy Committee. I might happen to be interested in their projects simply because I happen to have founded that committee several years ago.
Yep. Gotcha. All right. So we get that taken care of, I guess, I think, I don't know. Our next meeting is August 14th at 5:30. It will be in conjunction with a special town meeting at 6:30 with the warrant having been posted today. So that has been taken care of. Is there any other business to come before this board?
There was one correspondence in our packet.
Correct.
Skipped over number 8.
Well, because I hadn't gone down to number 8 because I was at number 7.
Oh, sorry.
And then number 8, we have correspondence. We have a letter from Mass DOT, a municipal pavement program, State Route 2, South Maple Street. This is a pretty cool thing where, because South Maple Street is a numbered Route 2A, it does qualify for state funding for paving as a state highway. And they have agreed to repave and resurface South Maple Street from Route 2 to Bridge Street, which is wonderful, saving us a large amount of money in Chapter 90 funds that we can use for other places within the village. I think we're looking at Church Street and one or two other places for that monies. I'm not sure when that project will be done, but it will be something that the town doesn't have to pay for, and the state is picking up the tab, which is awesome.
Great. Bob,
Yes.
if I may, it's just while we're on the subject of Mass DOT, Terry, is there any update on the bridge sidewalk project?
Just that they're working on it.
Have they started work on it?
Yes, they have.
Oh, okay.
That started last week, I believe, Monday.
Okay, great.
Excellent. And of course, we also have to point out that there's been a great deal of coverage recently over the upcoming closure of the Bridge of Flowers for the 2024 season with the reconstruction. It's something that will impact the economy of the town, but it will come out on the other side much stronger and be able to last for another 100 years and be a safe and a beautiful part for our community. So it's a fire district project, not a town project, and in conjunction with the state that they've been able to coordinate grants for that. Anything else? Public comment? Is there any public comment? Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
Bob, we have
Thanks.
2 hands up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, 2 hands. Cynthia.
Thanks, Bob. Because you were talking about the tax insert that came out this year, I just thought I'd follow up on that. So that idea came up at one of your meetings that I happened to attend, where there was some important information that you wish there was a better way to get information out to all the citizens. And I came up with the idea, well, maybe in the tax insert, we could encourage people to sign up for the town e-newsletter, and that might help. So I'm the person who actually wrote that tax insert. I presented it to the board before it went out, and you voted to accept it as written. So I just thought I would clarify that. And I have it in front of me right now, and I just thought I should bring up the fact that what it states is that the town boards and committees often post notices about opportunities for you to give input on important matters. The library, senior center, village task force, and nonprofit organizations also inform about opportunities. And then it goes on to say how to sign up for it. So I just thought I'd clarify that it actually does say nonprofit organizations, library, senior center, village task force. I don't know if you consider, in your discussion tonight, I wasn't sure if you considered all those entities as viable for posting to the e-newsletter, but I think that's the kind of thing that makes the e-newsletter so useful to citizens, because we don't hear what's going on. There's so many wonderful events that are offered in our town, and I don't learn about them often until I read about them afterwards in the newspaper. And so I've enjoyed having all these entities post notices, walks that had to do with the water district, for instance, that was a Mass Audubon thing. So I would like you, if you could, to consider the the functionality of that e-newsletter as more than just municipal news, and let it be a little more open to other interests. I know that there's a problem with church and state being involved, but I'm not so sure that that should carry over into other nonprofits.
It was actually the wording in your piece that I had used in my suggestion regulations or guidelines for the newsletter, because I thought those things were important too. And because of that notice and that we voted on it, that's why I thought that the newsletter was supposed to include this, not be limited to boards and committees. But
So yeah, this is just basically public comment. We're not.
Yeah.
So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
John,
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to comment on the dilemma of trying to define what a term is, such as liaison or representative. I would like to just, in my opinion, point out that in fact, you already have liaisons on these committees, and those are the committee chairs. So they are in fact the people who should be coming to you. From my experience, a representative is someone from the board who is actually appointed to another committee, if you will, that has a has a vote on that board, as well as just representing the town's interest. So unless, and I see no reason why with the multiple committees that you have that you need a actually representative on any particular other committee, since you already have a liaison in the form of the chairman. And anybody can attend any meeting as a public person. So I don't think it's incumbent upon any of you to actually have to come back and report to the board on any meetings that you attended in person or on Zoom or whatever, that you were just going for your own informational purposes. And that's my 2 cents. Thank you.
thank you, John. Any other hands? Andrew,
Cynthia just reminded me of another group that I forgot to mention, which is the Village Task Force, which actually was created through a grant from the FERCog and calls for a seat from each town, in addition to representatives from the business community and from the local neighborhoods. So I have been representing the town of Shelburne on that task force, but probably wildly inappropriately for the last 18 months or so. So I will hereby resign from that public seat on the village task force.
Andrew, I'm sorry to disappoint you, but you were appointed to that role. That was one of the 7 seats, so don't resign anytime soon.
Well, I'm saying that I've been there for 18 months now, so I think my tenure may have expired.
we'll act on that later on that resignation.
All right, just putting it in your hopper there.
Okay. Is there any other public comments? Signs, hands, signals, smoke signals, flailing? Hearing none, seeing none. Is there a motion to adjourn?
so moved.
Is there a second? Second. All those,
Second,
all
sorry.
those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Andrew,
Hi.
Rick,
Aye.
myself as I, motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for attending tonight.
All right.